In the heart of a city that never seemed to sleep, beneath the hum of life buzzing through concrete and steel, a young girl named Lydia lived in a world defined by sounds and textures. Her home was a cocoon of warmth and love, an apartment where the walls echoed with the laughter and gentle conversations of her parents. From the outside, Lydia's life may have appeared picture-perfect, yet there was an unspoken weight that lingered, manifesting in the creases on her parents' foreheads when they thought she wasn't watching or listening. From birth, Lydia had been blind, her eyes unwilling to process the light, weaving their own endless night. For Lydia, this darkness wasn't a void. It was an intricate tapestry of sounds, the shushing cadence of her mother's voice as she read aloud, or the firm, steady beat of her father's footsteps approaching her bedroom after work. Sound was her symphony, touch was her paintbrush, and memory was her map. Despite the overwhelming affection from her parents, Lydia sensed their unease growing alongside her. Her parents, Claire and Tom, were perceptive and loving, aware that the world outside was vast and vigilant, perhaps too daunting for their fragile little girl. It was not that they doubted her capabilities, but rather they doubted their courage to let her face the world's unpredictability without constant guidance. Clutching her mother's hand, Lydia often felt their outings were like tender negotiations between her desire for exploration and her parents' instinct to protect. While she never glimpsed the vibrant colors of sunsets or the delicate pastels of spring blossoms, Lydia was entranced by descriptions, the very words rich with imagery her mother spun, vivid landscapes colored with emotion. Yet, with each story, a seed of longing rooted itself deeper within Lydia, a yearning to experience the world independently, to conquer her immediate surroundings without always tethering herself to the protective grasp of an adult hand. Her desire for freedom blossomed anew each day, a silent, powerful call only amplified by the laughter of other children that floated through open windows. One evening, clutched in the warmth of her father's embrace after dinner, Lydia spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper, yet striking with clarity. "Papa, when can I walk by myself like Ella does?" Ella was Lydia's neighbor and a friend who visited often, filling their home with tales of adventures and laid-back strolls down the street. Tom's heart ached as he searched for an answer in her unclouded gaze, faced with the innocence of her request and the complexity of his emotions. "Lydia," he began, gently smoothing a few strands of her dark hair between his fingers, "it's important that you're safe. Ella has eyes that help her see what's around. We want to make sure you're just as safe." "But I have ears and I have hands," Lydia replied, a hint of determination hardening her voice. "I know how to listen really well, sometimes better than Ella. And I feel things like no one else." Her response struck him, showcasing a wisdom and courage that filled him with both pride and fear. He looked over at Claire, who'd been listening quietly, her eyes reflecting his own inner turmoil. They knew they couldn't shelter Lydia forever, but the world seemed so vast and indifferent, and the thought of unleashing their precious daughter into it was a prospect nearly impossible to bear. "Maybe one day soon, sweetheart," Claire chimed in, drawing Lydia closer. "We'll continue practicing together until you're ready." "Step by step," she added softly, her voice both an anchor and a lifeline. Despite their reassurances, Lydia couldn't help feeling a persistent tension, the aching gap between the security of her familiar world and the excitement and terror of what lay beyond. She could sense the conflict shadowing her parents' love and concern, lingering quietly in the background of their everyday life. However, Lydia also displayed an inherent resilience and maturity, choosing to dwell on the possibilities within her grasp rather than linger on limitations. Every day became an opportunity to challenge her boundaries, though under the watchful eyes of her parents. They devised ways to incrementally foster her independence, a tactile map here, a memory game there. Yet it was an emotional balancing act, one fraught with fear of what might happen if missteps occurred. Even as they sought solutions to empower Lydia, their attempts were coupled with the frustrations of not having easy answers or capable tools. A knowing help had to come, but never fast enough. And so Lydia's journey became a reflection of her parents' internal struggle to envisage a future where their daughter could engage with the world as confidently as any child. Amidst this backdrop of quiet struggles and small victories, the family lived in the hopeful anticipation of a catalyst that could reconcile Lydia's aspirations with their protection. Little did Claire and Tom know, the intervention they both feared and desired, a turning point carved from the deepest dreams and tribulations they would soon embrace, was destined to arrive, heralding in the form of a creature whose loyalty and patience would promise Lydia the independence she craved and them the courage to loosen their hold. Their journey taught Lydia's parents that paths were sometimes found not only through sweeping gestures and grand scenes, but etched in the intricacies of everyday love and faith, showing the smallness of their fears against the vastness of Lydia's undefeated spirit. The morning air was woven with threads of autumn, crisp and invigorating, as Lydia sat cross-legged on the living room floor, tracing outlines on her braille book while her mother brewed coffee in the adjacent kitchen. This was the hour when comfort lived in familiarity, yet that day there was an unspoken anticipation lingering in the whiffs of freshly ground coffee beans, a silent promise of change. The excitement was palpable, even though Lydia couldn't quite place the source, but she sensed it in her mother's upbeat humming, a tune reserved for special occasions. Tom's footsteps could be heard pacing between rooms, a sound-printed map Lydia knew intimately. Today they were quicker, the movements of a man readying himself not for work, but for something else entirely. "Are we expecting a visitor, Mama?" Lydia asked, her voice a song of curiosity wrapped in innocence. She paused her reading, running her fingers over familiar textures. Claire hesitated, drying her hands on a towel. How to encapsulate the magnitude of what was coming? She wanted to convey assurance while keeping the surprise, a difficult rope to walk with a daughter who sensed so much. "Yes, sweetheart. Today's a special day. You're going to meet a new friend," she said, laughter lacing her words. Tom peeked from the hallway, a soft smile playing on his lips. They had wrestled with this decision, weighed with the fervor of hope and fear, finally settling on a choice that could bring their daughter further into the world she longed to be part of. Just as Lydia was about to ask another question, a knock resonated through the apartment, a three-tap tune punctuating the building's suspense. Lydia's head turned toward the sound instinctively, her senses attuned to the nuances of life around her. Her parents exchanged a look, their expressions tinged with both apprehension and excitement. Tom gently lifted Lydia to her feet, guiding her towards the door. "Are you ready for your surprise?" he asked, his voice carrying an undercurrent of trust. Lydia nodded, her fingers gripping his hand, small yet fierce with anticipation. And as the door creaked open, the hulking yet soft presence of the visitor padded silently into her life. "Say hello to Jax," Claire introduced, her voice tender with emotion. The golden retriever trotted forward, his gait steady and deliberate, a silent calmness enveloping the room. Lydia's fingers hesitated at first, suspended in midair, an uncharted trust waiting to unfurl. Jax, sensing her quiet apprehension, moved closer, nuzzling her hand with a gentle insistence that spoke volumes beyond verbal language. The texture of Jax's fur surprised Lydia, soft and dense, a warmth unfamiliar yet oddly comforting. Her other hand reached tentatively, sliding over his back, feeling the gentle, rhythmic rise and fall of his breath. The contact was magnetic and immediate, an intimate connection that words could scarcely capture. Seated now on the rug, Lydia giggled, a spontaneous, bell-like sound that rippled through the confines of their apartment, filling the space with pure joy. Jax responded with a wag of his tail, a visible, exuberant semaphore. In that moment, a bond was forged, one that promised loyalty, adventure, and implicit understanding, a partnership not thwarted by her lack of vision but deeply nurtured by their shared capacity for trust. Tom and Claire watched, their hearts swelling with a myriad of emotions. They knew they were witnessing the first steps of a journey they hoped would grant Lydia the autonomy she craved while soothing the persistent ache of their parental fears. "Can he stay?" Lydia asked, tilting her head towards her parents, her plea soft yet potent with hope. Claire knelt beside her daughter, wrapping her in a tight embrace, breathing in the mingling sense of childhood and promise. "He's here to help you, Lydia. Jax will be with you every step of the way," she assured, her voice breaking slightly under the weight of her own emotions. And so began their days of learning. Lydia and Jax at the heart of this silent pact. The golden retriever, trained from a young age, exhibited patience that softly ushered Lydia to rediscover her world. Each lesson was a journey, a trail of tactile and auditory landmarks, a game Lydia embraced with fervor. Jax became not just a sentinel but also a confidant, a listener as Lydia narrated vivid dreams and small daily wonders. His presence lent her courage to explore her surroundings with a visual map painted not by eyes but through intuition and sensation. Outings to the park, once measured in cautious increments, transformed as they walked seamlessly to areas Lydia had only dared dream of visiting alone. Her hands, once glued to the reassuring clasp of Claire or Tom's, now lightly held Jax's harness, a thread connecting her to a newfound freedom. The changes weren't confined to Lydia alone. Tom and Claire observed, their own confidence unfurling like petals in sunlight. Every time father and daughter returned from their small ventures without incident, the invisible tether of fear slackened, bartering their trepidation for trust. At dinner tables and bedtime stories shared, discussions evolved from protective hesitations to narratives suffused with anecdotes of Lydia's and Jax's discoveries. In Jax, they found not only an ally for Lydia, but a bridge that linked their own hesitant hearts to the certainty of hope realized, their dreams mirrored back by Lydia's growing independence. Autumn days slipped into winter, and their family fell into a comforting rhythm, punctuated by Lydia's gales of laughter and Jax's soft pawfalls. The city outside teemed with indifference, yet inside their apartment, life breathed assurance, gradually reconciling Lydia's aspirations with her parents' need for safety. Through Jax, the world revealed itself in a spectrum Lydia understood, a tapestry woven with touch and trust, sound and silence. He was her eyes, yet more than that, he was an enabler of possibility, a companion reflecting the tenacity and love pulsing through Lydia's vivid world, a reminder that sometimes what we fear to lose becomes the foundation upon which new freedoms are beautifully built. The morning sun cast long shadows across the floor as Lydia traced the outlines in her braille book, each raised a familiar friend in her small fingers. The book's touch was calming, a sanctuary in the quiet rise of her otherwise noisy thoughts. Her mother, Claire, brewed coffee in the adjacent kitchen, and the rich aroma intermingled with the crispness of the autumn air that whispered through the open windows, an unwelcome guest teasing the leaves outside. Yet underlying the ordinary tranquility was a palpable excitement, a tension humming low and steady in the room. Lydia could sense it like a song playing just beyond her hearing. Her mother's humming, a melody usually reserved for birthdays and celebrations, added to the thrill of the day, while her father, Tom, paced soundlessly in his stocking feet, his motions a subtle dance Lydia identified through vibrations in the floor. Today was different. The air itself felt like it was holding its breath. "Are we expecting a visitor, Mama?" Lydia asked, her voice a symphony of innocence and curiosity. The question hung between them, charged with the weight of what was to come. Claire hesitated, her spoon resting on the counter, struggling to find the right words. How do you explain the gift of independence? How do you prepare your child to embrace change when you are terrified of letting go? Her voice, when it came, was tinged with optimism. "Yes, sweetheart. Today's a special day. You're going to meet a new friend." At this, Lydia's heart quickened with an anticipatory beat, but she had no time to inquire further. The room soon reverberated with a distinct, deliberate knock at the door, a signal that a new chapter was about to unfold. Instinctively, Lydia cocked her head toward the sound, her sensory world aligning itself in anticipation of the revelation. Tom and Claire exchanged glances, an unspoken conversation encapsulated in a gaze lengthened by love and worry. Lydia was their world, their heart walking outside their body, and today they were entrusted with planting the seeds of her independence. Tom reached out, his hands steadying his daughter as if grounding himself in the process. "Are you ready for your surprise?" he asked, his voice an anchor amidst the swirl of new beginnings. The door opened with a creak that seemed to echo into eternity, and in walked Jax. The golden retriever moved with a grace that belied his size, his kind eyes assessing the room before settling gently on Lydia. He had been trained for this moment, to be a guide in the deepest sense, one whose loyalty transcended any hindrance life placed before them. At first, Lydia's hand hovered hesitantly above Jax's head, suspended between fear of the unknown and exhilaration at its promise. Jax stood patiently, embodying calm assurance as he nudged her hand with his muzzle, inviting trust with every gentle push. When her fingers finally met his fur, it was like touching warmth personified, a softness that spread through Lydia with a comforting certainty. Her other hand joined in exploration, feeling the solid rhythms of Jax's breaths, life manifest in a creature who would soon become her confidant and guardian. They seated themselves together on the rug, Lydia giggling, a sound that danced joyfully in the air, chasing away any lingering hesitation. Jax responded with an enthusiastic wag of his tail, the room swelling with an unspoken promise between them, of companionship, of liberation, of a future brightened not by light but by profound understanding. The next few months challenged Lydia in ways she hadn't anticipated. While she embraced Jax and all the adventures he promised, the transitions required more than she understood. The world outside her door was vast, filled with unknowns that screamed possibilities to her yearning heart. But possibilities were double-edged, promising excitement yet underscoring her vulnerabilities. Each journey outside was a lesson in trust, for Lydia, for her parents, and even for Jax. Lydia's heart swayed between a desire to explore and the invisible chains of fear. She had always relied on her senses as her map, but stepping into busier streets meant facing overwhelming soundscapes and the chaotic, fragrant dances of open-air markets. The cacophony of life beyond the familiar park posed a daunting sound wall to scale. Tom and Claire watched every tentative step Lydia took with a mix of pride and trepidation. Their fears were omnipresent. What if something happened? What if Jax was distracted? What if Lydia needed them, and they were a heartbeat too late? They knew they needed to let Lydia, guided by Jax, explore her expanded world, but their hearts ached with the enormity of it, allowing her freedom while clutching desperately to the strings of control and protection. The challenge reached its zenith one particular day when a neighborhood fair, a boisterous melee of laughter and joy magnified by autumn's final embrace, came to town. Lydia's friends talked about the fair, painting vivid verbal pictures that spoke to her soul's hunger for adventure. The thought lingered like a whisper in her mind, tempting yet terrifying. As the fair day approached, Lydia expressed her wish, clear and resolute, to attend. Her words carried the weight of her longing and the strength of her trust in Jax. But her parents' hearts wavered, the decision testing their balance between encouraging independence and being ever protective. Lydia felt their hesitation. Her small hand clutched Jax's harness, her most steadfast anchor amidst the storm of uncertainty swirling around her parents' reluctance. She had come to trust Jax, feeling his presence a steadying force in her often chaotic world. But would they trust in his abilities as she did? Her father's voice was the first to break through the tension, his resolve clear yet tinged with a careful apprehension that only a parent could know. "Lydia, I know it seems a lot, but we need to make sure you're okay. The fair will be busy and loud," he said, trying to paint the scene she could only imagine yet was determined to experience. "But I'll be with Jack's daddy. He's brave, and so am I," Lydia replied, her voice small yet unyielding in its conviction. Lydia's unwavering faith in her four-legged friend became a catalyst, turning the tide of her parents' fears. Claire took Tom's hand, her gaze a silent assent to their daughter's plea. Trust mingled with love, the most potent balm against the tide of their anxiety. And so, with hearts lodged in throats but hands released from lingering doubt, Tom and Claire found it within themselves to let Lydia take that step into her newfound world, trusting in Jax's quiet strength and Lydia's vibrant courage to navigate the fair's bustling maze. This decision, while monumental, was the first page of Lydia's unfolding journey, a journey marked by courage, discovery, and the quiet power of allowing a soul to find its way through darkness, illuminated by unwavering trust and the comforting warmth of those who loved her. The morning sun cast long shadows across the floor as Lydia traced the outlines in her braille book, each raised a familiar friend in her small fingers. The book's touch was calming, a sanctuary in the quiet rise of her otherwise noisy thoughts. Her mother, Claire, brewed coffee in the adjacent kitchen, and the rich aroma intermingled with the crispness of the autumn air that whispered through the open windows, teasing the leaves outside. Yet underlying the ordinary tranquility was a palpable excitement, a tension humming low and steady in the room. Lydia could sense it, like a song playing just beyond her hearing. Her mother's humming, a melody usually reserved for birthdays and celebrations, added to the thrill of the day, while her father, Tom, paced soundlessly in his stocking feet, his motions a subtle dance Lydia identified through vibrations in the floor. Today was different. The air itself felt like it was holding its breath. "Are we expecting a visitor, Mama?" Lydia asked, her voice a symphony of innocence and curiosity. The question hung between them, charged with the weight of what was to come. Claire hesitated, her spoon resting on the counter, grappling for the right words. How do you explain the gift of independence? How do you prepare your child to embrace change when you are terrified of letting go? Her voice, when it came, was tinged with optimism. "Yes, sweetheart. Today's a special day. You're going to meet a new friend." At this, Lydia's heart quickened with an anticipatory beat, but she had no time to inquire further. The room soon reverberated with a distinct, deliberate knock at the door, a signal that a new chapter was about to unfold. Instinctively, Lydia cocked her head toward the sound, her sensory world aligning itself in anticipation of the revelation. Tom and Claire exchanged glances, an unspoken conversation encapsulated in a gaze lengthened by love and worry. Lydia was their world, their heart walking outside their body, and today they were entrusted with planting the seeds of her independence. Tom reached out, his hand steadying his daughter as if grounding himself in the process. "Are you ready for your surprise?" he asked, his voice an anchor amidst the swirl of new beginnings. The door opened with a creak that seemed to echo into eternity, and in walked Jax. The golden retriever moved with a grace that belied his size, his kind eyes assessing the room before settling gently on Lydia. He had been trained for this moment, to be a guide in the deepest sense, one whose loyalty transcended any hindrance life placed before them. At first, Lydia's hand hovered hesitantly above Jax's head, suspended between fear of the unknown and exhilaration at its promise. Jax stood patiently, embodying calm assurance as he nudged her hand with his muzzle, inviting trust with every gentle push. When her fingers finally met his fur, it was like touching warmth personified, a softness that spread through Lydia with a comforting certainty. Her other hand joined in exploration, feeling the solid rhythms of Jax's breaths, life manifest in a creature who would soon become her confidant and guardian. They seated themselves together on the rug, Lydia giggling, a sound that danced joyfully in the air, chasing away any lingering hesitation. Jax responded with an enthusiastic wag of his tail, the room swelling with an unspoken promise between them, of companionship, of liberation, of a future brightened not by light but by profound understanding. The challenge reached its zenith one particular day when a neighborhood fair, a boisterous melee of laughter and joy magnified by autumn's final embrace, came to town. Lydia's friends described it in vivid detail. The cotton candy that spun clouds of sweetness into eager hands, the carousel music like tinkling stars, and the smell of popcorn mingling with hay. Lydia's heart ached with a longing fueled by their excitement. As the fair day approached, Lydia was resolute in her wish to attend. The discussion lingered over breakfast, her parents' voices woven with caution and love. Each word was a stone laid on the path of concern threaded with the golden strands of wanting her happiness. Lydia felt the weight of their decisions press against her tiny shoulders, each apprehensive whisper a silent barricade she neither saw nor understood completely. "But I'll be with Jax, Papa," Lydia reminded them, her voice small but imbued with an unyielding conviction drawn from a place of inner strength that belied her tender age. Her statement was simple, yet it resonated with the force of unswayable faith, clear as daylight to her. Tom and Claire saw their daughter with eyes that mirrored the depths of their love, knowing that their greatest act as parents was learning to let her go just enough for her to soar. Her trust in Jax illuminated their path, each step forward a testament to Lydia's courage and their burgeoning acceptance. On the morning of the fair, the sky was painted brilliant blue, patchworked with banners of cotton candy clouds. Lydia dressed in her favorite red sweater, the chunky knit a comfort against the autumn nip, and a splash of bold color amidst the blending hues she couldn't see but could sense in the warmth of her parents' smiles. Lydia's heart thudded like a drum as they neared the fairgrounds. The air buzzed with the vibrancy of impending adventure, a welcoming symphony that urged Lydia forward with spirited whispers. The fair was a kaleidoscope of sounds, laughter, music, the hum of delight, and Lydia took it all in through her heightened senses, her world expanded by the tapestry of experiences unfolding around her. Hand in harness with Jax, Lydia moved confidently forward, her steps a melody of newfound freedom. Jax expertly guided her through the raucous crowd, his presence a sentinel in the sea of vibrations. The warmth from his body seeped up through the soft leather that connected them, a steady pulse of reassurance that everything was going to be all right. Jax stopped beside the carousel, the ringing laughter and cacophony a living entity that danced around Lydia. Her senses were alive, sharp, and exhilarated, her fingers clutching the harness tighter, each squeeze an affirmation of the moment, a promise to embrace it fully. "This is the best day ever," Lydia declared, her joy unfettered as her smile rose like dawn breaking after a long night. She spun high on emotion, a giggling embodiment of liberation captured in time. Her parents followed at a safe distance, Tom's hand around Claire's, both of them watching, hearts clenched but full, each beat a rhythm of pride and love bursting from every seam of their being. They had done the impossible 1,000 times in their minds, and now here it was, unfolding lusciously in a living testament to the dream they cherished for their daughter. The fair, vibrant, and immense, was the perfect backdrop for Lydia's world to unfurl. She became part of something bigger, a small story within the infinite narrative of those boundless grounds. When the cotton candy melted sweetly in her mouth, when Jax trotted her safely to the interactive music tent, meeting new friends who speak in notes and rhythms, the promise of endless tomorrows filled her senses and heart with. In the days following the fair, life took on a rhythm that felt like both a gentle waltz and an exhilarating sprint. Lydia's world, once small and introspectively contained, now burgeoned with potential and quietly fierce reckonings. It was a transformation marked by simplicity, a reminder that ordinary moments, when observed through the lens of newfound independence, held extraordinary power. During mornings, when sunlight streamed through partially drawn curtains, Lydia would awaken to the calm presence of Jax beside her bed. His soft breathing was a lullaby, his warmth a constant vigil she had come to trust entirely. With a sleepy rustle, she would stretch before beginning her routine, each day a subtle rehearsal of exploration and joy. Claire, always a few steps ahead, ensured Lydia's clothes were laid out, her breakfast prepared, the whole house tiptoeing around her own burgeoning independence. In the invisible thread connecting their mornings, Claire learned to step back slowly, to allow her daughter's sense of curiosity and self-reliance to bind their shared moments together. One crisp morning, Lydia sat quietly by the window, tracing her fingers over her favorite Braille book, her intimate collection of fables and tales she knew by heart. Her fingers danced over the rows of dots, replaying stories where heroes sought to find light despite encompassing darkness, a series of tales she now felt a personal kinship with. Jax nudged her calf with his head, seeking attention. "All right, Jax, I can take a break," she giggled, her fingers curling around his ears, feeling the silky softness between her thumb and forefinger. Claire watched from the kitchen, mug in hand, feeling a warmth spread through her that was not entirely from the coffee. There was music in these ordinary exchanges, a soothing melody that underscored the quiet triumphs and everyday truths Lydia was learning and teaching in equal measure. Later that week, Lydia's parents received a call from Mrs. Carter, a principal at Lydia's school who's known for having a nurturing oversight coupled with a keen eye for possibilities. She proposed an idea that fueled both excitement and a tremor of fear in Lydia's parents. "The district is planning a family day fair, and we would love for Lydia to be part of our introducing ceremony for the new safe zones established for those needing special accommodation," Mrs. Carter explained, her voice brimming with enthusiasm. Her journey with Jax can be an inspiring story. Tom and Claire discussed it long into the evening, volleying between nervousness at the prospect of exposing Lydia to such a public platform and the celebration of her bravery and growth. Lydia stood quietly by Jax when they broke the news to her the following morning. "Sweetheart, Mrs. Carter invited you to a very special event at school," Claire began, her voice gentle and encouraging. "What kind of event, Mama?" Lydia asked, brushing her fingers through Jax's fur more intently. Tom knelt beside her, his hand gently resting on her shoulder. "They want you to show others what it's like living and learning with Jax. It's a way to help everyone see what's possible, Whitey. You and Jax can inspire them." Lydia contemplated the idea. The silence pulsed with the weight of opportunity and expectation. She trusted Jax implicitly, felt courage swirling up from her core, but outside, beyond the safety of known boundaries, uncertainty loomed visible only through her parents' eyes. However, the allure of showing others the joy she found in the unexpected stole over her. "I want to do it," she decided, her young voice steady with resolve. "I want people to know about Jax and how we see things together." The preparation for the event involved late nights and early mornings, each session scripted in love and changes punctuated by Lydia guiding Jax through tasks tailored to echo daily routines and their shared wonders. With each practice, a fall of autumn leaves clattered peacefully against the sidewalk outside, whispering tales of change and constancy all at once. When the day of the fair arrived, the sky was brushed with autumnal gold under a canopy of faded blue. It was one of those rare days full of promise wrapped in crisp breezes eager to collect new stories. Lydia donned her favorite red sweater, the one marking transformation, daunting but delightful in its declaration of courage. The gymnasium burst with activity. Colorful banners hung in seemingly weightless suspension, casting ribbons of reflected light across busy floors where families clustered, laughter wafting like a healing breeze. Amidst the cacophony, Lydia found her balance in stillness beside Jax, waiting for their moment to shine. As her name was called, Lydia took a deep, grounding breath. Holding Jax's harness, she let the vibrations guide her, each step solidifying her resolve. The cheers met her ears, a harmonious crescendo of encouragement, buoyed her onwards, reminding her that she was not walking alone, but with a crowd of believers. Standing before the gathered ensemble, she paused, feeling the energy envelop her. Though her eyes saw darkness, she felt the brilliance of sight through her fingertips, her heart. And in the hushed space upon reaching the microphone, she tapped into inner strength, letting Jax's presence bolster her. "This is Jax, my best friend," she began, her voice a clear stream amidst the sea. "He shows me the world through touch, through sounds, smells, and laughter. Jax taught me that we can see without eyes, that the world is full of wonder if you know where to listen and feel. Her words rained like gentle autumn leaves, scattering insights that landed in the hearts of listeners, moving some to tears, others to silent contemplation. For Lydia, it was a declaration more powerful than sight. It was her unveiling, an unapologetic embrace of who she was and what possibilities lay within her grasp. When she finished, a wave of applause surged, the sound filling every corner of the room. Lydia turns to Jax, feeling each rumble as her own success. Her family joined her on stage, their presence wrapping her small form in unvoiced comfort and pride. In the confluence of joy, hearts melded by shared triumph, her story became a truth embracing the world, justice redefined in everyday moments and the courage to cherish them. In the days that followed, redemption whispered in wind chimes through the hallways of Lydia's life. With each new step and challenge, Lydia and Jax together unraveled the everyday from the mundane to the extraordinary, sketching a beautiful life from walking towards a light beyond sight, a journey marked by resilience and the sustaining power of love.